Is that mostly all just coding and actual like?
Yeah, it's mostly well, for the computer apps, that's my 9th grade course, so that's all Microsoft Office with some other computer information thrown in there.
Yeah,
that's through that Cengage or Cengage is the name of it. But the elementary is kind of more just whatever.
oh, gotcha. And being that I stole this.
You're good. I was just saying, what does that cover as far as curriculum?
For the elementary?
Yeah, the Cengage.
So that's for my 9th grade. That's the computer app. So that's all Microsoft Office.
So it's mostly just inter-office applications.
Yeah, it's Word, okay. PowerPoint, Excel, and Access is the last one.
Teaching Access.
It's the plan.
Brave.
Yeah, well.
Brave.
Well.
I mean,
Speaking from
I feel like people are like kind of stopping to use it unless you're a real SMB. I mean, it's
right. Well, so it used to be Publisher. Apparently, they that was in place of Access, but now they teach Access.
Well, Publisher's like like it sounds. Publisher Access is its own like lightweight database product.
Right.
But I don't know if I would teach Access. Yeah. I mean, for the environments that use it, they're heavy users though. But if you go to like the enterprise space, no one's going to use Access. And I mean, like I said, if you're SMB and you have a business that uses it, they're going to be heavy because some lady, God bless her, that was her thing, and she uses
I remember they taught it to us
everywhere.
at BJ in college, my freshman college computer lab. They had us walk through some of it.
I've tried to teach it.
And it was horrible.
Before. It didn't go well. It's really, really confusing.
Right.
How far of a gap would it be to use like a Raspberry Pi, Arduino projects to do like basic programming with kids to show them how to like input output sensors and things like that?
Isn't that what you were saying you had going on? Hey, come on in. How are you? Come on in. Come on in.
Yeah.
I mean, we focus
Have
on
a seat.
coding
Take a seat.
at the elementary level just for week of coding, like when they
Oh,
power of code.
Yeah. From Google, right? That does
I
that?
think it's Google, yeah.
Okay.
But that's essentially as far as we go with coding. And
We're gonna be really, really informal because there's
And that's a nice kind of low code
58
solution, right? Because it has like
58 other
games
people
they
go to
play where it's
wherever
like
else. So
figure out how to turn
we're gonna
left
have a
in the
good time in
maze,
here.
right?
That's for sure.
Can really separate the kids who really.
You guys are gonna get some serious one-on-one time with an actual.
That's what we were kind of wondering because our school
advisor
doesn't
here.
have anything like that. And I was like, what do you do? Do you offer it as more of a club first, and the kids that want to stay after for robotics can do
I
that?
definitely recommend doing the hour of code.
Yeah.
There's like a week during the year that it's like really pushed.
Okay.
And then you can kind of start separating the kids.
And you do that with first graders?
She does it all the way down to first grade, yes.
Wow.
Because we don't do pre-K and K. They don't have computer at all.
My daughter is a kindergartner. I'm thinking like she's only got a year until she start that. I'm thinking.
Some of them are really, really basic, and they separate it out
Okay.
as far as grade level.
Come on in. Hey, Mr. Bradford, good to see you today.
Okay. Yeah, that'll be interesting to think through. I was thinking about just kind of taking an adult, like I said, adult class and finding 15 fun lessons, but there's so much fundamentals where they might not build anything fun for 6 months if you do it once a week.
Right, yeah.
With at least a low code, no code platform, you can get to something fun a little faster. But I don't know. That'd be interesting to test.
Come on in. How are you?
Hi, thank you.
Good. Come on in. I
Welcome.
feel like we're already beating our Hoover
Yeah,
participation.
we had 4 on
This is
Hoover.
good.
It was
Let's see
looking kind of
Let's see 'em
bare.
keep shuffling in. That's what we want. We want to be able to help as many people as we can. Absolutely.
Only one starfish.
Dr. Mary Gardclay.
Oh,
That's me.
That's one
That's
of us.
me.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, this
Dr.
is
Mary?
You
No.
might have gotten put on because I did
Yeah.
something. I went to the wrong room.
Okay,
So
this
if
maybe
you
was
look on the
printed.
map.
If you're looking for cost-conscious cybersecurity,
D is for diversity.
So
we can make it that.
we can talk about
we
that
can
if you want
pivot
to stay.
real fast.
it's now
It'll bring more people in.
Yeah.
Downstairs.
Downstairs, here's the
Oh,
table.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
Go out in the street and
we were
compel
winning. We were
Yeah.
winning.
Sorry.
We did have a
Oh,
group
it's
of.
okay. My heart's just.
Yeah,
leave
we're
with
having
you
a
out
hard
the
time.
door.
We're having a
My
hard
heart's
time
just
filling
walking
them.
with you
Yeah.
out the door right now. So
So what do you guys do? A couple of you guys are giving off IT vibes. What do you do?
I teach high school science.
High school
Awesome.
science. Okay, I could feel the energy from high school science. What do you do?
I work at camp.
cool.
So
Okay.
I'm one of the exhibitors here.
Okay, cool. And what grade? You said?
I'm the assistant principal, and then I also teach a few classes.
Which ones? Fun ones?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Fun ones, absolutely.
And I think you said you teach some science or some computer
So,
classes? And,
Yeah, some elementary computer, and then junior high boys Bible and math class. So,
Okay. And I already know the answer, but let's get it out anyway. Go ahead.
Okay, principal and Bible and history, one history class.
Just say you teach everything.
And
That's fine.
everything else you get asked to, right? Everything else,
Yeah, anything left over.
anything that needs to be done. Well,
All right.
we got ourselves a minute. We're going to give whoever that full minute to get here.
Yeah,
Because
so
they need
we're
this
just about
bad.
there. Give them the full minute to get here. It was interesting as we had more people do the survey associated with
Oh,
this.
yeah. Our
that are gonna
survey
show
was
up to
banging on Hoover. There were so many.
Yeah.
We were up like 50 responses, but that doesn't mean anything apparently.
Apparently, just the D for diversity is such a compelling
They need it.
draw them in course.
Also, there were like 7 different workshops at this time. So that was
You guys
more than
get
anybody
moved?
else. Yeah, we got moved
Yeah,
too.
moved like space.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe people were
That's what it is.
trying to find you.
I went to the wrong place first.
See?
We appreciate you keeping looking. And hopefully,
Please
your,
don't stop looking.
and hopefully your time will be well spent today. So
I thought the second floor was like when you walk in. But
That's the
Apparently
third
not.
floor.
That's the third
apparently.
floor.
That's the third
Yeah.
floor.
you start on the third. You got to go down to first, and then back up a second, and then you got to
so
earn
I
it.
was like,
You got to
so mean
earn
I
it.
Go back down. She's like, no.
No.
What do I do? Just take the elevator.
Can you just take my hand and take me where I'm supposed to go?
Hold me, please.
Yeah,
Did she say we need to turn that on?
I think
Or
she
is
said
it
it's
going?
on. But I told her we had you have audio if
Okay.
I wanted it anyway.
Is ours ready?
Yeah, we're good.
All right. Well, we'll go ahead and get started. My name is Mark Zockoll. This is James Rabe. We're going to present to you today on cost-conscious cybersecurity, specifically though faculty staff training or camp staff training or, just being a good science teacher. Either of those things. We hope that you will find usefulness in many ways here. But to introduce ourselves some more, James is going to start.
Yeah, so it's a picture of me, my lovely family. I'm married up, in case you guys can't tell. So I work in cybersecurity. Very much not the career that I planned for myself. I went to undergrad at Pensacola, which was my first interaction with Christian education. We did not have a Christian school in my area. Went to a public school, and really just a bit of culture shock showing up to Pensacola, not knowing any of the rules coming into that. But majored in biology and chemistry there. Then went on to do my master's in business at the college, and then went immediately into technology consulting. And like I said, did not study this, but got immersed in it really, really quickly. And just 10 years of upskilling, starting with just technology management, and then moving into cybersecurity compliance and consulting. And then now I work in a very niche part of the industry called threat modeling, where my focus is on finding realistic threat scenarios against critical infrastructure and helping businesses build secure applications. Now, as a part of that, I do get the chance to volunteer with schools.
We're
and
not paying them,
universities.
that's for sure.
Yeah,
So-
they're not. There's no. They are going to pick up lunch, I think, is what I heard. So I'm really excited. So my focus is really I get to volunteer and I get to help, and that's where Mark and I get to work together.
Absolutely. So I'm Mark Zockoll. I am a Christian education professional, in so much that when I went to, I should also say, because we're asked to talk about our life in Christian education. So since 3rd grade on, I've been in Christian school, or I was in Christian school, and that included an undergraduate degree that had 2 years at Bob Jones University, 2 years at Maranatha Baptist University in English, and then a master's degree in English from a secular university, and a doctorate in educational leadership from another secular university. But the time after that has been spent in teaching English, bumping up and being an administrator in that same school in my alma mater. So if anybody else had a chance to work or teach in your alma mater, that's a pretty cool opportunity for you. But the last several years, I was at Seaside Christian Academy as their head of school in Ocean City, Maryland. This is my wife and our 3 kids, and there is one bun in the oven there who is now due a week from today. So a week from today, we will be most
So
likely.
if you see me
induced.
get a text message and then we have to leave,
Like,
you guys
out the
know
door.
what that is.
That's what it's coming from. Andrea is going to the hospital. And as another side note, beautiful Christian education family, James and I do go to the same church, Faith Baptist Church in Salisbury, Maryland, and it has a school, Faith Baptist School, and I was the administrator, and that's the school I graduated from. But Andrea, my wife, went to the school. She was a year below me, and Allie, and these two were peers. These two were high school classmates, who then, of course, She met him, and the rest is history. All the rest of these are history.
And then we also have the next generation at the same school. So both of our daughters are actually in the same class together.
Yes.
So Charlotte and Allison are now in kindergarten together in the same class that our wife's with.
Yeah, it took some greasing of palms, lots of money changed hands, but we made it. We got
lots of dollars.
Lots of dollars, lots of single pennies. All right, but this is the 50th anniversary at KCEA, and they asked us to share the Psalm 105 to all generations. And in the context of the verse and what we want to talk about today, we won't be there for future generations if we don't get a hold on this now. There would quite possibly be issues that could arise from cybersecurity needs or cybersecurity threats or cybersecurity scam, whatever it happens to be. It could cost us some time or resources or the good trust and the faithful partnership with the family. So we want to talk about that today specifically, and then also move into what else God has for us. But we should pray before we keep going, as asked. Father in heaven, we thank you for the 490 plus attendees of this event. We thank you for the exhibitors, the speakers. It takes a lot to shuffle these schools through what you would have them to move through as ministries. And we're thankful for all the willing participants. Bless us now. Make our time that which would please you and glorify you. We love you. We thank you for your Son in whom we have communion. Amen. All right, so away we go. We're going to be looking at, specifically in this session, we're going to be talking about some practical strategies, some budget-friendly strategies, and even some very specific tools that could help you in your faculty staff training. And we're going to walk through some in some other areas, and we'll show those in a minute, what we came to learn as a need, what James and I have done as a response to that need, and then what we would say would be some emphasis for the training that we would be suggesting that you go ahead and make a part of your ministry at some level, or pass that torch on, or bear that torch, or carry that torch for your administration if your administration isn't doing it already. And we do have numbers that would suggest to us that most administrations are not doing this consistently with their faculty and staff. Now maybe you were all the exception to that rule. That'd be awesome. We'll look at that, as well as a couple of tools, tool and product suggestions. So MSISoft put out some numbers very recently that the threats to schools are only growing. But they're not just growing, inch by inch a year. They are growing exponentially. So the numbers that we would have to share from this article, the 108 affected districts represented, close to 1,900 schools. One district saw nearly 200,000 stolen files being posted online, including details of campus rape, teacher abuse, students' psychological reports, other extremely sensitive information. Notice this is 2024. And what we've seen since COVID is just an explosion of attacks, and not just generally in the sector, but on schools, specifically on schools. Now, being that Christian school administrator, being the head of school, when I think about how much money I had to fundraise, or at least try and budget for technology at any level, I know it was well under what these public school districts were budgeting for, which would have included some more cybersecurity that would be demanded of them than was demanded of me. Yet these are the attacks and the numbers that we are seeing. So we want to talk about that some more today, but just to set the table a little bit, some more numbers found. More than half of the educators don't know or have not received basic cybersecurity training. These are not our numbers. Notice this is Morning Consult 2021, so even a little bit previous to now. Another note to make here. Half of educators and administrators aren't concerned. Now, this is interesting because we have a poll going right now on the Whova app, which is complementary to a survey that we created, we're going to talk about in a minute. And we're seeing even, can I say, worse numbers than this right now amongst our schools. Anything else you want to add here, James?
I look at this and I think, why? Why aren't you concerned about this? And I think partly maybe people don't understand the value of their own data. Right? If you think about what's inside of your Google Drive right now, it could be everything from emergency calls, it could be everything to photos of our kids, right? And I know I'm very restrictive about what I put online about my children, because I know that is 2 clicks away from I can save that photo and I can have that photo for sale on the internet somewhere else. Yeah. And being aware of the value of your data, right? Kids Kids don't have credit scores. Kids have very low credit, but you can still open up credit cards in kids' names, right? So being aware of the information you have and the sensitivity of that. And I think most people just think, we're a small Christian school. What do we have to lose? How about your brand, right? If I can't protect my kids online, which I consider pretty low-hanging fruit, what does it say about the rest of my organization? If I've got someone, and again, this is going to be a much bigger explanation here, but if I've got someone who's able to take illicit information and store it on my network, if that information is ever discovered, how do I go, I swear it's not mine, right? Those things become hard to decree, and that's the kind of accusation that shuts down schools.
Absolutely.
Because all I need is one accusation, maybe completely false, but that accusation is enough to leave a stain on our record, especially a school with 25 years of experience. All you need is one really loud parent in the community to do some serious brand damage for you. Imagine a very public breach where all of your student records are now online, right? All of their school, all of their grades, all of their social security numbers, irreparable damage. Good luck getting another social security number, right? Imagine dealing with that with all of your kids.
So up here in the corner, you're going to see this Christian Principles Podcast logo over and over again. And we do see on the front side that this is a collaboration between PhishSBY and the Christian Principles Podcast represented. But James came on to the Christian Principles Podcast, which I host with Matthew George, who's the administrator of Faith Baptist School in Salisbury. And James came on and talked about this. And the whole time, Matt, I just remember seeing his hands over his ears and his face. Like, I don't want to talk about this. I want to bury my head. I don't want to talk about this. I don't want to talk about the issues that could come from this. Because it is sobering. It is sobering to think about, wow, if they're seeing these kinds of attacks and this is what we're seeing, why is it? So James and I, James prompted me the spring of 24. James prompted me to chase this down with him. And so we sent out a survey, and in another role, I teach research design at the graduate level for a Christian university. And so we sent out a survey to a number of Christian educators around the country. We got back 98 responses from 21 states over these 10 core questions, and it was on cybersecurity in Christian schools. So what we're going to talk about in the next little bit stems from that survey based on what we've already seen with those outside of us, because we know that most often we're not the ones being asked those kinds of questions. They're asking the public school peers, they're asking some of the big name private school peers about their thoughts on it. So this is what our teachers were saying. 80%, I've never received cybersecurity training. That wasn't us making it up. That's what they're saying based on a coded response. That's what they're saying. If I move along here, I've never changed my primary password for 70% of those respondents. James, anything you want to say about that?
I get it. I mean, I came from an MSP. We did IT support. We worked with the small mom and pop business. The number of them that they're using, not only they never changed it, they're using the password that was given to them, which means it's probably the setup password. Yeah, it's the setup password for probably everybody. Or like, oh, the girl here before me had that password. Yes. I don't even know why. I think it's the name of her dog. I don't know, but that's very common. Because number one, like, it's uncomfortable. Like, going to your secretary and being like, listen, we need to change your password that you've used for 10 years, and we're going to set up MFA. She's opening up her Motorola flip phone. Like, does it even support MFA? Like culture change and security change is hard. This is not an easy thing to talk about. I mean, it's an easy thing to talk about. It's a harder thing to do.
That's what we're up here talking about.
Yeah, exactly. We don't want to do it in your environment.
Yeah, you get to deal with it.
Yeah, so no surprise here.
I'm not aware of student data policies, or I need more clarity on them, 64%. We'll see this one fleshed out a little bit more later. But what we're talking about here clearly is some kind of incident report response, or with student data, literally, I'm a teacher, I should have a siloed amount of information available to me about that student, and I don't need, if I'm a third grade teacher, I should not know about the fifth graders. I shouldn't know about their information.
Or consider the due diligence process. We have an LMS, right? It's managing our grade book, it's managing our student data. Was the question asked, how secure is my data? How are you securing my data? Or was the question just, what's the price tag? Does it have the feature I want?
Mhm.
The feature you should have asked about would be, how is my data secured, right? And that's part of that vendor due diligence process that sometimes gets lost when we're most concerned about, we need to get online, we need to get away from paper
Yeah.
grade books, we need to make this easier. Well, easier has a price. And if you can hit that data from home, I can hit that data from China. And China, Cozy Bear, and Russia have a lot more research. Not that they're targeting your LMS, but again, it doesn't take me longer than 20 minutes, and we're going to talk about password strength, 20 minutes to brute force a 6-character password. And we'll look at that today. But consider, ease of access means ease of access, not just for you.
Yeah, what are those partners that we are third-party vending? What are our vendors? What are they promising us as it comes to this? Perhaps all we walk away today is just a conversation. Hey, let's go have a conversation with Fax. Let's go have a conversation with so-and-so. Why is Gradebook Wizard so much less expensive than so-and-so is? Well, perhaps this is a reason for it. Yes, I have resources. Yes, I have resources to help recognize phishing attempt. Only 23%. So only 23% were able to say, which is better said this way, almost half had not received any resources when it came to some kind of phishing attempt, which is, I guess, happy to say that 50% did, or at least were aware of them at some point. It would be, anybody willing to be honest, I would open the floor and say, does anybody want to walk through a phishing attempt at your school if you'd like to, or your place of business if you'd like to, but I won't put anybody on the spot too bad. So I'll keep talking, but if you do want to stop me and share your story, I could share a story from, there was an email that went around about so-and-so had a piano, and actually it went from the school I was at to the school I used to be at, and because there was a relationship there, it was opened by the faculty and staff of the previous school, and it went, I don't know the ramifications of that other than people all got the same email from me, which was not from me, but even one of those sort of attacks, one of those sort of opportunities.
From our principal
Mhm.
that went around. I mean, it wasn't her, but she asked people to purchase gift cards
Mm.
and send them to her. And we actually ended up having staff that purchased
Oh,
a few $100s worth of
Oh.
Amazon gift cards, but
Ouch.
it wasn't her. So she
Wasn't
called her on the phone, and our principal was like, "That's not me."
oh.
And at least you'll use the Amazon gift cards. Hopefully they weren't
Right,
exchanged
exactly.
yet.
They didn't. They didn't send them, but she was very close.
Oh.
We gave a very similar discussion at a church in Pennsylvania. And in that room, I think they said they'd had around $90,000 worth of cyber fraud. Now, granted, the average age was upper 60s. So senior citizens sometimes aren't as quick to recognize evolving cyber changes, right? I mean, I'm just sitting there and I'm thinking, you transferred $20,000 off of an email? Like, I mean, I'm number one, I don't have $20,000.
Listen, when the crown prince of Algeria comes to me and
When
asks
he needs my help.
when he needs my help, I do not say no. Who
Yeah.
am I to say no?
I mean, I just think like, holy smokes. But like the gift card thing, I mean, I work in this field. I hear this all the time. So when I get somebody asking me for that immediately, I mean, I'm going to mess with them, right? But people just need the training. They need the awareness.
Thank you, Beth. Thanks for putting yourself out
Good
there
share.
that way.
Good share. Were you one of them? Too personal. Okay. Too personal.
I did get.
She was the one getting the email. She was the one getting the gift
But it
cards.
almost looked like they went on our school website.
Yeah.
Got
Yep.
email because it was multiple. It came from multiple different people who worked at our school, but it our email.
Yeah.
Newsfeed or whatever it's called now.
Yeah.
Like it caught all of them, and it flagged them, but they still were able to get.
Still went
through.
So my business is PhishSBY, which is Salisbury, Fish Salisbury. Okay. The length I go to create phishing emails, I go and create accounts at organizations I think you belong to, so I can spoof their emails, and I'll grab their headers, I'll grab their signatures, I'll grab their fonts, and I'm going to return all of that back to you in a well-crafted email about a free school raffle, because teachers are going to click on it, and I'm going to win, all because I'm predicting your behavior. And that kind of stuff is not hard. You can automate it. I enjoy doing it myself. It's the one of the last deceptive things I get to enjoy for fun, right? But the length you can do and how close you can make them is so easy to do. And one of the platforms we'll talk about today actually has a really nice email builder in it where you can build and craft your own phishing campaigns in a very low code, no code solution. So you don't have to be, great at formatting HTML to build some really convincing emails.
While you're telling stories, could you please tell the story about the ministry you worked with who had the outing and you went ahead and canceled their outing, or you tried to anyway?
Oh yeah, so social engineering, right? Phishing, right?
There's multiple kinds of phishing, not just the email sort.
Yeah, so phishing is a subset of social engineering, right? Social engineering is a non-technical means of getting you to do something. Now, if I send you an email, like I'm not hacking anything, right? But if I can get you to give me your credentials, I can just log in as you, right? But imagine you're a church secretary, and I notice on your Facebook page you've got a social event coming up on next Saturday, right? If I call that restaurant and figure out just confirm your reservation, I can call and cancel your reservation too. I can also call the secretary acting as the restaurant saying, hey, I need a credit card to hold your reservation. My boss is yelling at me. And put on that like, I'm super, super scared. Can you please help me out? My boss is really upset. And you get that 65-year-old secretary who just wants to help you out because you sound just like her grandson. And she's going to give you that credit card on the phone. And I'm going to make some really nice purchases with that credit card. Because it's probably a business card, and it's got a high credit limit. And I just stole from you. And it's that easy because they're trusting people, and you need to teach them to say no to trusting people on the phone and know when they're being phished. And what are the scenarios around social engineering? I've created urgency. I've built a little bit of rapport with you. And then now I'm going to start extracting information from you and knowing, like, when am I being asked for something inappropriate? No one asks for gift cards. It's never the right answer, okay? Knowing, Zockoll, it happens all the time where someone's going out to buy Google Play gift cards because someone asked them to. So
coming back to our survey here, just to rehash, 80%, they haven't received formal cybersecurity training. Another 70%, they haven't changed their primary password. 65% did not fully understand policies and safeguarding student data. Again, these are our Christian school peers. These would be educators, administrators, somebody that was in the school building in the 24-25, in the 23-24 school year. 48% reporting zero phishing training. As far as our results from the Whova app today, these are actually out of date because we did have some updates. We were like 51 or so responses. But this is today. This is just for our event. Does your faculty staff receive regular cybersecurity training? The numbers for no, 33 out of 46-ish. I put ish in there just because I figured that someone may say, well, 1 year we had this one guy come in and do that one thing. That's an ish to me. It's not a yes, it's not, and just, the flat out yes is 3 out of 46. And that number, I'm pretty sure, has not climbed even from what it is right now, and you can see it on the Whova app. So we don't even need the survey from previous to show where we are right now. This is something that we're saying, this is us. We are, come and take it. That's what we're saying in many ways. So some training tips. We're going to spend a lot of time on identity management, a little bit of time here, and then some time here. But in our digital identity management improvement, we're going to have 6 very specific things we want to show you and walk through. Please stop us. Please stop us and ask questions. If we get through part of this, we'll send you whatever we don't. But we'd rather you stop us and make sure that your questions get answered at this time or whenever. In fact, I should say, any questions about something we just talked about or anything we did talk about? If not, if you want to come up with them, say at the end. But we're going to walk through each one of these. So first up is to create a sufficiently complex password. All right. I don't know if you've ever heard of security.org, but security.org is one of many places you can go online and type in your password, and it will give you some kind of a measurement in time of exactly how fast it would take James, or one such black hatter or white hatter, to, as he says,
sorry, that
brute
look was
force.
he shot me in the eye with the laser pointer.
to brute force your password. Yeah, it's a little light bulb that blinks. That's all it is,
Yeah, my light bulb too. That's great.
Mark, can I ask
Yeah.
a question?
For
So I'm in charge of setting up all student emails, passwords.
Yeah.
Okay. That's like 200 and some kids.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I have to set their password. Do I set it at a standard password and then make it so they have to change it? Like, what is
Does
the
say.
practice?
Tom asked that same question.
Yeah. So do you have someone that can help? So are password resets a common issue with your students?
Not necessarily resets, but just setting them up.
Okay.
Like at the beginning of the year, you know, like obviously the kids that are returning, they have their credentials and whatever, but the new students. So
I mean, my heart's weeping a little bit thinking about 200 data entry exercises. I believe Google has an API where you can just like automate that completely. So let's talk more about that later.
Okay.
But yeah, creating them all a default password, you ideally don't want to know their password. In a school, like it's a little less severe because they're not working with any data, but to preserve like which actions were done by the student versus they go, well, she knew my password. It might have been the teacher that logged in. Like that's really unlikely. But still, I want to preserve the repudiation knowing that that student committed the action with their account. So I would force them to change it next login. If you do that, it's very likely half of your students are going to forget their passwords, right? Like if we're living in a real world where students don't write down their password, or it's going to be the name of their dog, their birthday. A higher education institution I went to used our birthday and the last four of your social, which meant that if I knew your birthday, I could brute force anyone's account on campus within 5 minutes. Okay, so ease of access and security, two different sides of the coin, and they do work against each other. So you have to decide if I do change their password or make them change their own password, the consequence to that is someone's going to ask you to help them with their password eventually. Now with Google, and we were talking about this earlier because there's kind of pros and cons here. If I enable self-service password reset, kind of like your Google account, if I forget my password, I can go change it. But to change it, I'm probably going to get a code on my phone. I'm going to get a code to another email address. And if I don't let them have their phone in school, how do they change their password? Or if they don't have a phone, right? So you run into like some of the same issues. So in that circumstance, I'm thinking maybe I'm a little more okay with a known password, but just know you're making some trade-offs, okay?
So the issue with that is you have Google Classroom, right?
Yeah.
Like, so you have them submit their paperwork, Mark turns his in, and I know Mark's password because everybody's passwords are similar enough that I can go, oh, I know his first name, last name, and his date of birth or whatever, and that's what maybe the password code is. So I can log into his, copy his homework, and then submit it. It's great. Yeah,
I'd probably go a little more variation on the passwords than
That's what I was like trying to get. Like that's the how do we go? What's the level of that?
Yeah, and there are going to be like password generators where, because obviously like that 12-digit password with just a bunch of random characters. Listen, ain't no way I'm remembering that password. But Frogman 451 dog, it's memorable enough that I can type it. And by the way, when we get to like that password on here, we're talking hundreds of thousands of years. Okay, it's just like your password, and it's not hard to remember. And you can use a password generator from like KeePass or LastPass has one as well. Bitwarden's going to have one that will generate a passphrase for you, and then you're just copying and pasting.
So on both of these questions, if I may, because we've set the table, and the table is I've created my students' passwords, whatever rules I'm using to create them. And the next question you're going to ask is, okay, do I want them to be able to change their password? And we would say, as you've heard, it could be a yes or it could be a no. You got to weigh out the pros and the cons of that. Let's say you go with the yes. I want them to be able to change their password. Okay, they changed their password. Just remember, on the backside of Google, you can get into anybody's stuff. As the admin, your admin should be able to get in and to change their password whenever you please. So it's not a problem of if Susie changes her password, now I'm locked out, I can't see. No, your admin should be competent enough to get back into the backside of Google and to reset, which isn't, I've done that.
And you can reset as well as just set. So if I want to set it to Maggie Smith 451, whatever that's going to be, I can hand that student a Post-it note, which you write down a password, not a great idea, but I can hand that student a Post-it note because if you don't, they're going to remember it, forget it 10 minutes later, then we got to go back and do it again. But at least you're no longer in possession of that password.
So I think to both questions, there's some measure of you got to weigh your man hours. Beth, it sounds like it's you. Todd, it sounds like you might have somebody to help you out, but yeah, you guys. But you got to weigh the man hours. You got to weigh the coming back to you or coming back to that guy to take on the responsibility of helping to reset the password, helping to jumpstart it if they can't remember what it was, or just logging back in and resetting it. But to me, a key would be you're never really locked out. You can get back in. Does that help with?
Yeah, I guess the big thing is I don't have it turned on right now where they can reset their passwords.
Mm-hmm.
So anytime passwords are forgotten, they're notifying me, which I'm in class most of the day.
Sure.
So it is a little bit of a pain, but
Now, inside Google Workspace, you can designate other people as password. I think they call it like an identity manager role. You can set them up so that the teachers can reset passwords, but they can't at Conical, right?
But then it gives further people access to that silo of information you want limited people in.
yeah.
So
Okay. I definitely.
so clone yourself
Yes.
and teach yourself lots of IT stuff.
Yeah.
But that might be a situation where you make that call that for your organization, because of its current setup and because of the setup that you're seeing it moving forward, you're going to make a call on, I'm going to trust me, and I'm going to tell the students beforehand, I'm not going to mess with your stuff. We're going to have the one password or the two, whatever it is.
Definitely like eye-opening at the fact that I need to ensure that they are changing their initial passwords and that option is turned on, where I set their passwords and then once they log in that first time,
Then
they need to go and change that password. And I'm not sure that that's activated on there, so I need to check on that.
What do you think, Todd? You got your thoughts?
That's right. I'm debating it now
Yeah.
because of that. That's the idea is having a conversation.
Yeah.
So we use numbers primarily
Yeah.
with some of them, and then sometimes we use names. I like the numbers better, but
I was just going to say, I had the task of doing that this year as well. The previous person before me had her own setup, and it was very easy for the kids to figure out, somebody else's password.
And the kids are way smarter than me.
I was like, and kids are so stinking clever, man. Like,
Oh, yeah.
knock it off.
And we actually had an incident of a kid going on another kid's account and messing with the work they did, and they were found out and dealt with, but that was right at the end of the year.
And let alone the work they did, what if they're really trying to get that kid in trouble?
Right.
I mean,
there's a lot of ramifications
even more.
on that.
Yeah.
What I ended up doing this year was I'm thinking, what can I use for passwords? Because I've got second grade up through that are using passwords. So I found something called, and it's very kiddish, but it's called DinoPass.
Okay.
And it will put two words together with numbers, and it'll also change one of the letters to like a symbol. But I think it's 10 characters long. But when I give that to them, it's easier for them to remember it because it's kind of silly, like the words that they put together. But that seems to work for them. But I also don't have it on where they change.
Gotta write that down now. DinoPass is something I missed.
And it'll give you an option of a simple one or a little bit more complex one where it throws symbols in there and numbers.
Did they ever ask for your username and stuff like that?
No.
So it's just
you hit the button and it gives you a new one.
Random generation.
Now it is a little tedious to set up because we've got over 200 kids as well. But once that's done.
Well, and like from a password management standpoint, like the question is, okay, now that I have a password, it is sufficiently strong. How often should I rotate it?
Right.
If you have an account with multi-factor authentication, which I mean, does everyone know what MFA is? Okay, pretty good understanding. I think everyone's shaking their head. If I have an account with MFA on it, I'm less concerned about rotating my password, right? And the NIST guideline, and NIST is going to be the National Institute of Standards and Technology, is what the government uses to refer out their standards. Very good trusted source for like what I should be doing. They recommend you don't have to change your password. Once you get past like 15 characters where brute force and credential stuffing it's statistically unlikely to be successful. If I have MFA, I'm less concerned about it. Because even if you had my password, you need my phone.
Yeah.
Or you need my app, you need my thumbprint, right? So we've added layers onto that conversation. But with students, you might consider once a year changing that out, right? Because they're more likely to maybe use that Google identity, and that's something else we should consider restricting. I may not want them using their Google identity to authenticate to other sources. Because if I can use my Google identity, they're probably not checking what's being shared.
Mm-hmm.
I might be giving Drive access to, Twitter,
There it is,
some silly website that shouldn't have access, so you can restrict which apps they can sign in with their school identities. So something else to consider.
Talking about the passwords, this is Tooth, And if he tried to, he could brute force this instantly. If I switch it up to toothbrush, it's going to take him about an hour to do it. If I move it to toothbrush, like Hertz, and I believe I put the S of Hertz as a dollar sign, it's going to move it up to 100,000 years. But go to security.org. Maybe don't use your exact password, but use a password like yours and check it out and see how long it would take someone to, quote unquote, brute force through your password, and try to make it better if you would like to. But use MFA. For time's sake, this is a simple one. Use it if at all possible. Maybe it's not going to be helpful for your students, but both Google, which is over here, and Outlook, they both offer two-step verification on the backside. And they are, I think you said at some point you made it, it's not a 100% fail-proof, but it's 99 point something.
There are, I think Microsoft, who's I will say it's the world's largest security provider, which is services. They estimate like 99.5% of all identity compromises, MFA resolves. Okay. Now, the times when it doesn't could be like, and again, session hijacking, where I've got a session cookie in a web browser that I've authenticated. You know, when you go back to the site and it just recognizes you, that cookie is stored in your browser. But if I take that cookie because you've been on some nefarious site you're not supposed to, or you've got a plugin that's malicious, I can take that cookie and I can act as you on that site. So when you go back and you say, remember my credentials on your bank, I can capture that session ID and I can use that to bypass your MFA, bypass your login. Now, it's a very small percentage of the time, but just be cognizant of, when you click remember my password, what that's doing, right?
So just to show you this, at the bottom of what Microsoft offers on their two-step authentication background, they actually move you over to Google and AOL because they get so many hits, I'm sure they don't want to deal with it. They tell you, go over here to where you actually have your email and get them set up with it. But let's keep going. The do nots, there are a couple of do nots. We would say do not reuse credentials and do not use shared accounts. Now, we think of this personally, and this news clip shows 80% of Americans share passwords, but only 13% are worried about identity theft. Have we seen this before? Absolutely we have. For our next workshop, we asked the question to people, how concerned are you about cybersecurity in your schools? And the answer of many was, not confident, but at ease. To me, that's right here. I'm not worried about identity theft for whatever reason. I'm just not. We would say that's probably a little bit innocent and naive. But we also don't think about this with our schools, but I want to prompt you with some things. So we got here Baby Yoda. How many of us are sharing the more expensive Disney Plus account with a family member or whatnot? Netflix, the same. Okay. We're not necessarily thinking about those in our schools, but maybe your school does have the Right Now Media shared information. Amazon, that's personal, but maybe your office staff does share the office account on Amazon. Did you want to throw something in?
No, you're good.
Okay. Canva. Now, Canva for schools is nice, and it's a nice free resource. This is a Canva presentation I've enjoyed trying to get to use a little bit more. But maybe there's some shared user information there that somebody who was in and waiting for your information to try somewhere else could find. Gmail, Facebook. I wanted to just say, personally, it is pretty common for Americans to share passwords on some of these applications. When we think about that for school, maybe we're not doing it so often, but if we think hard enough, there probably are a couple of things that we are sharing, maybe amongst office staff, maybe between a few teachers. So in a faculty staff training session, you would want to make sure you are reminding them, we do not do this on school devices or whatnot.
And I'll stress that first one right there, do not reuse account credentials. Okay, how important this is. If, let's say, for example, your secretary has fallen prey to a phishing email, okay, and she's or he have entered credentials into that, and now I know their email password, okay? The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to open up her inbox and I'm going to look for all the services she has. And what's the likelihood that the same email, obviously the same email address has been used at the bank, what's the likelihood the password used for the email is also the password used for the banking app? But remember, I may not even need that, because once I've compromised that inbox, where's that password reset email from the bank going back to? Let's go back to her email. Now I'm transferring money out of your account, right? So consider the implication of how sacred that email inbox is and why it's important to secure it.
So we're not saying that you want to you even feel led to monitor all your staff at this point in some way. But we did want to put this up here, that there are companies out there making money and watching what their employees are doing. Usually in a school situation, we see this more with like watching what your students are doing, and we think of GoGuardian or Bark or something like that. But we wanted to put this out there that perhaps there is an I know ActiveTrack has a free option, and James, maybe say something about Avanan for a second, but not only would there be like Big Brother oversight, make sure you're not on Facebook all day, but there also would be opportunities on both of these for some tracking, making sure that you're not seeing any kind of odd activity from Zimbabwe on an account or whatnot. So anything else you want to?
Yeah, so and with Avanan, and this is a good example, there are many email security products out there. The reason why I picked Avanan is I've used their Gmail and Microsoft 365 integration personally. It will notice the difference in writing tone. So, I mean, Mark has got a PhD in something English, or I don't know what it is exactly. It's smarter than what I can. So when Mark writes to me, it's like receiving the works of Shakespeare. Okay?
Thank you.
He uses all the words, all the spellings. He knows all the yours.
I think Shakespeare.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. But if he texts me back and it's like, you are, and then he misspells like 4 words in an email, Avanan notices the difference in Mark's tone. It goes, this guy is normally, like, he's pretty smart, he writes pretty well, and all of a sudden he's texting like a 7-year-old or 12-year-old, whatever these kids are doing now, and it'll notice the tone change between his email. And it'll go, hey, we're going to alert the administrator, or we're going to quarantine his account until this can be reviewed, right? Or it'll notice like, hey, Mark logged in Salisbury, Maryland, and then all of a sudden he's logging in North Carolina, and then it'll check its digital watch and go, that was too quick. What's going on? It notices like patterns. Right, and the integration for this is as simple as I go in and I sign in with my administrator credentials, and it'll immediately start protecting your accounts. And the nice thing with tools like this is they do have a per user pricing. So for $100 a month or less, we can add a lot of protection for all of our staff members very quickly. Now, if you add it to student accounts, it gets expensive a little faster. But things like this can protect and provide me with the monitoring that I need on those accounts without having to hire an IT guy, because IT guys are expensive and they're grumpy. So I understand.
Our 10-minute timer is going off, so we got 10 minutes left here. We got some more to fly through. I don't know if that's you buzzing over there, James.
It is, yeah.
Both of these paid. How many of you have seen your Gmail account do that for you already? Do some of that suspicious activity monitoring already? Yeah. Gmail has broken out into this recently, but let's keep going here. Again, this is all under identity management, false answers for account recovery. So James had pointed out a little bit ago, I made up if you're prompted for a password, what's the name of your favorite restaurant? What's your first dog's name? Where'd you go on your first date? That kind of stuff. If I was prompted with what's the name of my favorite restaurant, I would say Hooper's. And Hooper's is going to be overlooking the Ocean City skyline over the bay, and they're going to have a bunch of crabs there, right? And I'm going to remember Hooper's, and Hooper's will be the answer for every one of my passwords. That is the reset. The thought is, add to it, and what's the term for this?
Yeah, I always like salting your passwords, right?
Salting
your answers, where I have a real answer, and you've seen those those things on Facebook where it's like, what year did you graduate high school, what street you grew up on? It's mining this data, right? That's what those are designed to do.
So I got Hooper's is the favorite restaurant, but I'm going to add Ripken 8 to whatever it is I'm going to further make so my new favorite restaurant is Hooper's Ripken 8. Cool. Now look what happens on security.org when I move from just Hooper's 25 seconds to Hooper's Ripken 8. Now it's 9 million years. So just a quick thought. This would be something, again, in a faculty or staff training, to share out with your people and say, hey, add some salt to your password. All right, we're because of time, James can hit this quickly, but we're going to show you the good Baptist alliteration here of recognizing, responding, reporting, recovering to an event. Remember those in your mind as he walks through that quickly, because I want to also bring this up, which was a part of our survey. And these are the reports. These are the responses from the educators that we sought information from concerning protocols for reporting cybersecurity incidents at their school. And suffice to say that largely 75% would say, I'm really not sure what to do, or I don't remember what to do, or something else, which isn't where we want to be. So, James, you want to?
Yeah, and the critical thing to take away here, right? So if we go back to the email example earlier, if someone has done something, I don't want to use the word stupid, they've made a mistake. Can they recognize that? Can they recognize I've done the bad thing, right? Not I answered into an email and I still don't know, so my account is compromised and is like this for 6 months, right? Then you start sending out these emails like Mark's talking about earlier, but like helping them recognize it. And that's really the first step in incident response. Helping staff and educating them on like, when have I done something that violates a security policy? And this is important, creating an environment where that person can then raise their hand without fear of, I'm about to be the example at the staff meeting in 60 minutes, right?
Like we had here with Beth raising her
They
hand.
might still be the example, but like create the atmosphere where it's like, hey, it happens. And like I use a personal story where like, this has happened to me. I've been the guy who clicked on the thing. It's happened to me early in my career. Did not know it at the time and recognized it a couple years later and realized like, oh, that guy wasn't Microsoft support that I let on my laptop. I've been there, I've done that. It happens. But create the environment where they can then like raise their hand. Teach them to like recognize what the important things are. Okay, what did you enter? What password was it? What did it look like? Help me find that link again so you can help, kind of figure out how bad is it going to be. And then making sure we report that information to the board. We report that to other staff members. If we have a bunch of accounts compromised, do we have any external reporting requirements? Which I think most of the time probably not. But making sure we know what are our next steps. And then obviously recovering. Did I reset the password? Did I look for hooks in the inbox? And we've actually got, I think that's actually in one of the articles coming up, Mark, which I know you'll talk about in a second. But the steps you can do to make sure you secure that identity, and then if it ever is compromised, how I can recover that and make sure there are no existing hooks in it from that attacker.
I mentioned the podcast that Matt, George, and I are doing, but James and I, because of that survey we were able to put out, we are going to be published in the American Association of Christian Schools Journal for Christian Education, a series of 3 cybersecurity for Christian school articles. And so a lot of this information you'll find there again, so we didn't get the chance to write it all down. You won't get my email and get it from me. You can see it there when it gets published, and hopefully it's coming out in, I think it's the October issue, which should be coming out soon, the first of those series. But a big deal that I would walk away from saying here is, as administrators and principals, or those who have something to do with IT at your school, is there a incident response protocol written down somewhere? At least, and whoever has the most to do, Todd's IT guy, maybe that's a task for Monday if it's not done already, is do we have an incident response protocol? And have we informed is it in the faculty staff handbook? Do we know, do they know? That we've been reviewed with it, what needs to be done in that situation. The last thing we're going to hit today with the 4 minutes I guess we have left, and before we have time for questions, just increasing awareness. And this is simple, but encourage your faculty and staff in those training times to do personal reading. EdTech News is one. You can find 100 other resources online for specifically information they can stay abreast of that would say, hey, I should be looking for emails from so-and-so, or I should be looking at this as a possible upcoming attack. Or maybe, again, that's whoever's doing IT in your school, that's a weekly thing. You're asking them to spend 10 minutes finding new information about what the latest attack is coming from, or what we're seeing. Presenting these best practices, perhaps those of you who have now joined us, we have a science teacher here with us today. Perhaps you're going to go back to your school and you're going to take some of these, you're going to take security.org and the password checker, and you're going to show all your faculty and staff, all your peer faculty and staff members on Monday or whenever, this information. You're going to say, hey, by the way, have you checked your password recently? I just got some what was that? Oh, you're good? Yeah. So maybe just increasing awareness amongst the faculty and staff starts with some of you going back and actually doing that for your schools. And then practicing physical security. This might seem simple or odd even, but implementing from the administration down a clean desk policy, which is not only good for you as the administrators, but also teachers do have pieces of information on their desk that not only just grades and health information, but there are pieces of information that float across that desk that a student might see. And how many, if I walked into each one of your office spaces and you think of the 4 or 5 offices making up a space, I bet you somebody has a password post-noted and taped to either the underside of their keyboard or the bottom of their computer screen. And I don't know what it goes to.
I think I hear guilty laughter out in the audience.
Like someone's going to have it.
The secretary doesn't even, he just turns a
Just sort of right there, boom, got it, right? I even know that. We didn't talk beforehand or anything, yeah. It was a legacy password passed down from the secretary before her, right? The same machine. So again, even just physical security will increase faculty staff awareness in their cybersecurity. We would promote there. So James has 3 to present really fast.
Yeah, a couple different tools here. So like we mentioned before, the one that does education and training and testing. Know Before is a good product. YouTube. I know this sounds silly, but like if you're doing like a weekly memo or a monthly memo to your staff in an email, YouTube has got some great trainings on it. Look for free cybersecurity training. The Cloud Cybersecurity Alliance, CSA Online, they've got a really quirky, memorable series. They're like 5 minutes long, and they're kind of semi-enjoyable to watch. Again, like I said, they're quirky. They're meant to be memorable. And then, or partner with someone, again, like what we do, your IT provider would also do this. So like sending out testing emails to staff, right? Find someone so they fail, and when they fail with someone like me, not like with someone, in Algeria. I can't remember who you used earlier, right? So
Prince. I got to change it up for copyright purposes, but
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Folks, thank you so much for joining us. If there's anything we can do right now to answer questions, we're going to be here in the same room for our next presentation. So I don't know if anybody's planning on sticking around for that one too. We'll cover a few things.
Yeah, or if there's any resources you wish you had.
Yeah.
So I'll take a look at the entering mass emails on Google and see if we can figure out a way to expedite that. If you could just leave me your email address, I'll find you.
For anybody who's checking this from KCEA, we're done now. So you can shut off this recording. The little girl can come and take it away from us.
The audio vary.
But for the rest of you now, if you want to kill it for our purposes,
Yeah.
that's fine too. Anybody else with questions or anything else we can do for you now? We will be here. If anybody wants to leave, the time's basically over now. So feel free.